My name is Erlendson, the Chief Evangelist for ARIS, and my goodness, we have a fantastic program today of fascinating guests and an incredible audience out there of folks who love and appreciate human AI connection and maybe even a little bit of ARIS. I'm introducing you today to somebody who you may or may not know, somebody who's exciting to me for the ideas he has and the ability to achieve some real tangible value rather than just sort of potential value by using AI and by using people through the lens of BPM to achieve sustainable growth. And that's Mr. Keith Mangold. Keith, tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and who you work for and what we're talking about today.
Thanks, Jam. That's one of the most exciting introductions I think I've ever received. I wish you could walk around with me everywhere I go to. Welcome. Anyways, yes, my name is Keith Mangold. I'm with LSA Digital. We're a team that likes to help companies implement the right technology and the right solutions. We like to we're Eris based. Our founder Mike is all about Eris, loves Eris. I think he lives, sleeps, dreams it too. I'm working on getting there. I'm working on that process, to be honest. Um, but I come from a background of many years of working on software development side of things, IT infrastructure, back end side, all kinds of different things within the IT career over my last 25 years of sitting with different customers, sitting with different users, um, trying to figure out what technology is actually the best technology that they should be using, right? It's not just here, shove in this tool, shove in this application, shove in whatever it is. It's about listening and understanding and figuring out how we can actually put something that is sustainable in place today, something that is actually going to last for the users. It's like I said, it's just so easy, right? Just to go up, purchase application, boom, now somebody go run with it, right? So
Yeah, and
uh,
like guilty, and ultimately you end up with a ton of technical debt, and also, and we talk about this a lot on these webinars, process debt. Like you buy technology and you don't implement it with processes that back it up, so your way of working doesn't really change. A portion of it is partially automated in a way that very few people understand, and the decisions that are being made. I think today we're going to go a lot into decisions and decision making aren't really being realized at a strategic level. They're being realized at an extremely tactical level and an unconnected level, sort of silos of because I implemented this technology. But Keith, today's conversation starts with the words human AI. And I know you have a presentation, so I'd like you to call that up. And I first want to start defining some terms before we get into like the sort of how we actually run this. Tell me a little bit of human AI and tell me like what is that term to you and why is that something that is a little different from how a lot of organizations are seeing the implementation of AI, particularly agentic AI, in the marketplace.
yeah, it's easy just I think for people to say, hey, they're using AI today, right? Um, and easy in the aspect of, hey, I'm using Chat GPT. Right? That's people think that just putting Chat GPT and go, oh, hey, I use it to write my emails or I use it to do something is oftentimes that piece of using AI, right? Um, and what I like to focus on is, my goals is not to use AI to eliminate positions, but the reality is it's going to, right? It's going to have an impact on certain functions, roles, people, the processes they do. Um, some of those impacts is that people elimination in the process, unfortunately, right? Um, I want those people to be that are using AI or having AI come into their processes and their practices, find a better way to use it as a tool to them. So it's more about augmenting what they're doing and augmenting who they are. So they can go back to their team members and say, hey, look at this, kick butt solution that we're developing or this idea because AI is helping me foster and nurture it and think things in a different way critically and or helping me get through that process faster, right? And so um, that's that's kind of a piece of that vision there.
If you could
Um,
briefly on this because you mentioned about AI taking jobs, and one of the things that I talk about to a lot of folks about the way that the work will change. I don't want to just say it's just taking jobs. That's very reductionist for a lot of people to say. It's honestly it's a fear response, and that's okay. It's natural. It's human. But what I will say is it looks like a lot of other automation we've seen, it's scaled quite up, over many years of industrial evolution. Because what it's doing is it's seeking to take the worst part of jobs. And so a lot of people's jobs are split between the things that they're uniquely specialized and powerful for the organization to complete, like their unique value proposition to the company, and then a lot of other random crap they do that is not particularly within their like best skill set, nor do they really want to do it. Like I was talking about this when we talk about AI generated process models. Like a lot of the initial drafting of a process model is pushing pixels. It's like essentially using like Microsoft Paint to move stuff around on the page. I understand it's about communicating a message, but when AI takes the first half of that and at least puts like things onto the page to get you started so that your job, instead of sort of coming up with where things should be and like manually placing things on the page, your job instead is to give it into a message. Well, that's what you are as a human uniquely valuable for.
Correct.
And so we're taking a portion that would normally be annoying, I would argue, the things you don't actually want to do, and that's being put to AI. So, yes, is it taking your job? Sort of. It's taking the portion of your job. What it's leaving behind is the thing you are best at and honestly that you want to do, and allowing you to scale up more of that, which I would argue is good for everybody. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to it. So let's go define terms, and taking a little bit about how you see human AI in this world, and what it seeks to support today. So give me a little bit of an agenda on how we're going to look at today's conversation.
So, one of the things that I generally like to share is that, you know, we've seen the different AI models, and we've seen how you can go up into any large language model such as ChatGPT or Gemini, ask it information, you can get data in and out of it, right? And you can try implementing it and say, hey, we're going to use this tool to do thing. Um, what we're seeing with that, and what the studies are showing, like McKinsey and Company has done a decent study on it, that the most projects don't fail from the model that's being used, right? It's coming from that poor productization practice. How do we actually get that tool and integrate it best into our system, right? Um, that's the more important part. It's not about the model, it's about how you're integrating that in that process. And so how do we get that into our core processes, those workflows, those customer journeys? How do we get that weak production process, that fragmented process, the lack of architecture to connect our technology to outcomes, right? Um, what is this that successful AI implementation, in my opinion, depends on that clear process, that well-defined workflow, and that plan for bringing those stakeholders along every step, not just saying, hey, that this stakeholder needs to come in at one point 50 steps down the process, but keeping them engaged in that whole process. Um, and I know obviously in the ARIS world, the enterprise architect side of things, that without that solid production path, right? That governance and that integration points, even the best technology, even the best large language model can't deliver value, right? Unless you have those other things behind it.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where we feel that that answer is that human AI mindset, where it blends what people excel at with what AI excels at. How do you find that proper blend between the two? Like you said, people bring that creativity, right? They bring that intuition, the empathy, the strategic thinking. AI brings processing power. It brings the pattern recognition. It brings scalability. Much easier to scale AI than it is to add 50 people to a process, right? And so, in the EA context, that human AI delivers that value by embedding those strengths into the processes and the workflows that are visible, um, auditable, adaptable, and using that structured framework of principles, practices, examples. Uh, that human AI makes it possible to model, simulate, and refine all of that once again at scale, right? Much easier to scale 50 AI agents than it is to scale 50 people generally. So
Keith, when we talk about scalability, it's not just about the scalability of the technology to do one thing. I want to talk about the scalability along our conversation today about best practices that you're learning through implementing technology in one thing. I always like to say if you optimize a single part, a step in the process, and you like burn all your cash and automation in optimizing a single step in that process, you better be able to scale that to the rest of the organization, or it's a lot of loss. Because if you implement AI, you have a bunch of people using ChatGPT a single place, and you don't use those lessons learned to spread it across a value chain, you're not going to be able to realize that value at scale. You're only going to be able to do one thing faster. And the lessons learned, and particularly the way in which humans and AI interact, are valuable across an entire value chain. And when they're repeated, when you take those lessons learned and you scale that through replication, incredible value to you. And you need the learnings of a small implementation, but the scalings of a full value chain process. I think we can talk about that as we look at the repeatability of some of the lessons that we have from our AI implementations at small scale, which I think is today, moving to large scale. So beyond proof of concepts to actual implementation.
correct. And yeah, and I'll cover some of that obviously a bit, or not obviously. You know the slide deck, so it's obviously to you, right? So thanks for that setup there, right? um, so yeah, that's where we like to get that well-designed pilot that automates maybe one step and maybe looks at that success in isolation. But when you don't have that architectural governance and plan, what we're trying to do is not let it just stall at that process, right? Get that pilot beyond that one piece where it is working in one part of the organization.
Otherwise you're gonna have the old death by pilots.
Yes, exactly. We've all been there, right?
Yeah, like that's the thing about this, and I know we want to get into more of these. Like I want to talk about the machine learning loop, but I'll just say for a moment, if you're doing an infinite number of pilots and you just POC after POC after POC as you look to make decisions, remember that those are not free. And I'm not talking about the technology costs. I'm talking about the vendors who might charge you, or the third party consulting firms who might ask for fees in order to execute these pilots. I'm talking about your own organization and its people. They're expensive. They're not doing other things. They're spending all their time just doing technology evaluations over and over and over again. We need a way to actually move beyond that to getting value. So let's talk about the machine learning loop here. What you see as a way of achieving a human AI success case.
Yeah. So, kind of here's how it works. Humans and AI system work together to leverage what the humans do well, as we talked about, to help the AI get smarter over time, right? That's the machine learning concept. Basic. I'm not introducing anything new there. We give the system some input. You have the input request. You give it some data. The AI gives you your initial response, and we review it. The human reviews that response. We give that system the feedback, that training data, the examples, the I'm going to say empathy, that human feeling to it, right? You give it that in hopes that it will learn from it, and that's where that it is then using what you've learned from that to reuse it over and over again, so that the next time it does it, you're hopefully going to get better output, right? You're training it. You as the human, you as the are staying within the loop every single time in that process. Um, I say every time right now, the beginning of this deck, but as we kind of go along, there's other aspects of where maybe you don't need to review 500 records. You're trusting it over time and saying, hey, maybe I need to review 10% of those records. So I just call it out because at a scale process, just to review something all day is kind of tedious, right? So
With the sample, like you would for any like scaled manufacturing.
correct, exactly. Um, so I'll transition slide. I'm going to skip over that. So this is kind of this diagram that we created that actually kind of makes what we think of the human AI system. You have these three different layers. At the core, GPT and tools, right? Yeah, ChatGPT, Copilot, Jasper, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, you name it, that is sitting back there. Maybe you have your own in-house LLM that's doing work customized for your own business model and data that you need. Great. Um, the bigger outside of that is the agentic AI that adds a little bit more logic. The tools that can plan what you're asking for, take actions, make decisions based upon it, right? Um, I guess I would maybe shouldn't assume, but um, we all know what AI agents are, right? It's that hey, you give it something and it runs with it and completes tasks for you, right? Um, but the bigger shift I see there is that outer ring, the yellow orangish ring there, that human AI side of it, where we involve people in that loop to guide, approve, to improve, and make the system better over time. Uh, and that's where I feel that this just moves from automating, that agentic AI automating. If you automate a crappy process, you're just automating a crappy process, right? To truly enabling the better decision and that better delivery over time. So, kind of an example I have here in this video. Um, ChatGPT, right? So one example that we have here is as an RFP. Like we have an RFP that we're getting maybe from a vendor, or we're getting ready to write an RFP for a vendor for some product that we're trying to sell to them. That's just an example we got here. And that RFP, for example, we ask ChatGPT questions about it. You can upload a document and you can ask questions about that document there, right? Maybe you have a vendor asking for clarification about that RFP and you need to reply back to them. I think, ChatGPT can, do a half decent job where it pulls out and creates a relevant answer. It creates a draft, it creates a response for you, right? That's that inner ring we talked about. It's just GPT and tools. It's helpful on its own, but it doesn't go far enough on its own, right? You then need to come here, copy paste it
Still a lot of work to do
for
for
the email, right? You know, I kind of little slight derail. I teach a college course, and one of my co-professors on a class the other day, we were struggling with a student that was complaining about something, and he went to Chat GPT and said, "Hey, help me write a response to this." And he copied the entire thing, the entire Chat GPT response. And at the very top, it says, "Here's a very empathetic response you can send back to the student." And he sent that back to the student. I'm like, no. Yeah.
I wrote an article about AI education a couple of months ago, and yeah, we need to be very careful about that, particularly when we're asking our students not to use AI in their responses. Then we as
Yes.
instructors don't get caught doing that same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. So anyway, so yeah, you have to get this Chat GPT information. You have to paste it, get it back to the vendor, et cetera, from there, right? Um, so then we step into that next layer, the agentic AI, that blue ring, where, for example, we've built this AI email response assistant thing where the system doesn't just respond to the email, it actually reads your incoming emails instead of you having to copy and paste the email over, right? It actually goes into your email. It's an AI agent that you can build almost so easily these days with tools like N8N and Make.com and Zapier. You can all go on there in 5 minutes and create, hey, read all my emails, reply to all of them right away, right? It figures out what's needed, routes them appropriately. Maybe you give it the vendor email, you paste it into the agent, it analyzes it, figure out what the next steps are, replies and escalates, takes actions in there. You're getting more automation, right? You're helping get to those emails, but you're not having that human true AI in the loop process there. You're not having that human oversight. It's just responding back to that message.
Before that, when we started this, we did talk about this idea a little bit, um, which is that there is an element of humans being able to detect when this is occurring. And so sure, there might be some more technical examples where this is more relevant when you're trying to check boxes for the security review of an RFP or something like that, where you're like, can I just provide the information back? and querying and then responding on your behalf makes a lot of sense to tick boxes. But when your end consumer of this information is a human being, you really need to be careful because remember the old does it pass the sniff test? Well,
Right. Correct.
that's the
Hmm.
that's happening every day now in human interactions with computers. They're asking whether or not the things that they're receiving, the feedback or the communications they're receiving, are being generated by a person who they can feel through the digital channel. They're making a connection,
Hmm.
or by AI, which has this sort of like uncanny valley experience where you're like, it puts you off. Something feels wrong about it. Once again, it doesn't pass the sniff test.
Uh-huh.
Uh, That's really a, a detriment to organizations who are looking to use this for consumer facing channels, customer facing
Hmm.
channels, because
Yep.
you don't want to feel weird. You want to
Right.
feel like you're being talked to as a fellow person. And I
Hmm.
know that that might change with consumer behavior. And I know that the normalization of AI agents being your first line of conversation is changing expectations. But I still believe that there is a moment of the spark of connection that does create a customer, particularly a customer relationship that is trustworthy, feels trustworthy.
Hmm.
Uh, in this example, this is a response from a RFP, which I once again checking boxes, but we'll get to more consumer facing things that changes the math pretty substantially.
Yeah. Great call. Kind of an example that I kind of play with in my own real life with my spouse is uh, I've gone up. At one point, I got a bunch of my chat messages. I went up and copied a tons of our conversations and sent that up to Chat GPT and said, "Hey, I want you to write a sweet little love text message back and generate a message and see what it came up with." The response was,
Is it good?
"Thanks, Chat GPT, for the love note." Because that sniff test was there, right? That just didn't sound like me. Yes, it heard me. Yes, it understands the sweet nothings that we give back and forth, right? And maybe the phrases that we say a little bit, but it doesn't sound like me. So now it's kind of become this game um, on many mornings that there's a text message that is sweet or something like that, and it's Chat GPT or me, type of thing. And your spouse your spouse is actually really, really good at detecting that process. So maybe play with that outside of this,
Yeah.
your spouse is.
No, no, Chat GPT or me. You heard
Uh-huh.
Keith Mangold that Chat GPT. Mark Hammergan on with our spouses and
Exactly. Yep. So
the level of human. Yeah.
anyways,
Look at the agenda. I'm sorry. This will.
back to this. Yes. Yes. Um, So here's where back to back to the professional mindset of not ChatGPT or me with relationship advice there. So with in an agentic AI system, as I kind of just showed in that previous slide, was hey, giving us some information, right? Where we have in this vendor email review center prototype mock-up with this prospect or not with this tool, this is where it's extracting all the emails from all the vendors. It's looking at all the different types of things that different vendors are asking in an RFP response type of thing. It's grouping them, maybe see five vendors asking about compliance, three vendors asking about technical architecture. It sees these patterns, right? It sees uh, what is happening and it helps organize and draft a unified response that goes to all three of them, right? That's
Mhm.
where it's taking it out a step higher and a step further than just a basic copy and paste of it type of thing. But in this process, this is where the human reviews that actual response, right? So
Yeah.
that you can see that little train AI for a better response type of box right there.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking a little bit too much. I'm going to go back and maybe start the video there. Um, again, because need to go. Yes. So that's where the human is actually giving it the text that you want to better way state your love note to your spouse, right? But your RFP response back to your different potential vendors. You're giving it back. You're training the system with what it generated, so that the next time it creates a response, um, it gets better, right?
Mhm.
You've probably all seen um, GPT hallucinating, right? Or it didn't have enough info the first time. That love note that it wrote says it was great, with that kiss we had over Niagara Falls. You're like, I've never been to Niagara Falls, right? Like it hallucinates, right? Thinking of those good memories, right? It does that in the professional setting too. I have to get off this mindset of Chat GPT for the rest of this call and love notes, but that's where I'm at. Um,
Example, and how we should do this. So let's talk about actually implementing this, and what does it do? How does it change what your company is able to achieve with AI? And to tell me, I'm sort of referring to this slide obliquely, but what's the value statement here at the end?
so that's where I think the value, and I'm actually gonna kind of jump up here a little bit just with some slides on that, is we want that smarter answer, right? We want that faster decision. We want that continuous learning. Those are the things where that value to me comes out, right? When the answer of the GPT system is smarter, right? Um, and it obviously that faster decisions, faster response, faster anything, right? We always want immediate faster. I'm an immediate gratification type of person, right? So, um, and in this, we're not just asking AI to complete a task. What we're trying to do here is to build that solution where each interaction improves the next one, right? So it's that value is an incremental process. It's not just a bam, all of a sudden today you're going to see that major drastic change. We're going to see that happen over time. Um, but that value that it's going to provide is going to be small, starting small in the first process and then scale up over time from there.
Also seems like it's almost an extension of knowledge retention. When I think about knowledge retention with programs, it's all about trying to capture what people have sort of stored in their head and put it into something reusable. That
Right.
other people who are coming in can take. Well, in this case, you're doing that. You're saying, hey, listen, human beings, I want you to use your judgment and experience, your expertise to inform the AI through responses to its generated responses. So you're creating this sort of bi-directional relationship that allows you to better capture people's knowledge while also automating at scale.
Correct. Exactly. Because that learning from us, that continuous machine learning. Machines, think they can learn from themselves, but that's where the human still is there, right? So, um, I'm trying to think of an example at the moment, or I've seen where, or I've seen articles that have talked about where human or ChatGPT is at times getting dumber because it's learning from its own hallucinations that it's creating, because it's written articles and people are putting those articles up on the web, and it's up there and it created up fake information, and then chat gpt's next model learned off of that information. You're like, wait, that's so not true, right? So
And that's why universities often don't hire professors from their own PhD programs
Mhm.
because they want to spread the knowledge around. It's not all inbred into the one organization.
Exactly.
Well,
Yep.
let's talk about first and foremost. Let's talk about some principles that we're going to talk about. How do we get there?
So to realize the enterprise scale value of human AI, one of the things that we like to do is set that high level principles that guide the flexible, context sensitive practices, right? Some of these are straightforward. I kind of hit on some of these, such as the starting small, scaling up. Um, that reflects the importance of testing those new capabilities before actually rolling them out across the organization. Some of the other ones here are more specific to human AI. Clarifying the intent, for example, means capturing and modeling the human purpose behind each process, so that the AI learns accurately and avoids that reinforcing bias. There's the making decisions visible refers to the transparency in how AI operates and how humans interact with it. The visibility helps the architects, leaders, and users understand what the AI is doing, why it is doing it, and how that decision is being made and how that's impacting the workflow.
And
And to me,
ultimately,
that's an important process there.
for like compliance and governance as well. Remember, like as
Correct.
if when legislation requires that, you kind of get that already from here, which is it's a twofer, as we say.
Exactly. Yes. And there's more on this. Obviously, the marketing ploy. Check out humanai.com/principles to read more on these right here. That was my
Do it.
little plug. um, so kind of our mindset is we are at LSA Digital scaled agile practitioners. We kind of live in that mindset. So if you're not familiar with scaled agile, it's that scaled agile framework with that. So a lot of this is kind of based upon that here that we promote. So at the front of that, there's a lean portfolio management pipeline and some of that mindset you'll see kind of through this, but where we're collecting ideas, whether that's from people, AI scrub documents, notes, that shared drive of full pain points, ChatGPT's cool new features where you can say, hey, go look at all my Google Docs and kind of stuff like that, Um, then we work on prioritizing those ideas, pick the ones that matter the most. Let's figure out what ideas we should implement based upon the cost, the value, the feasibility. And then the budget, then we budget in for the MVP, or I'm sorry, when we have the budget for that MVP approved and we kind of go through that process, then we'll implement and improve. We'll use that loop to make something real and learn from it. So kind of digging into more of these in a little bit more detail here. And so this is that first part of the collecting the ideas.
Mhm.
One of the ways I like to do, I'm sure everybody that's listening, you've been in those meetings and you have 50 different people going, well, let's do this. Let's do this. So let's use AI here. Let's use AI there. Let's do it. Right. You have that data analysis, right? You have that historical campaign data. Maybe you're getting information off of a practice of you're doing marketing. And that's what you want to look off from information of that. You have people, you have experts that you've talked to, you have user research, you have all these different data sources, right? That you've done to say, hey, what feature or what system should we build in our systems today? What's going to help our employees, our customers do best? We get all that stuff. Yeah, shove it into Chat GPT, feed those meeting notes, feed those research tools, the post-it notes. Chat GPT, in my opinion, it's great at that pattern recognition. It's great at pulling out those individual things from those notes and documents that maybe you missed. Um, get that fuzzy, that junk, those notes, whatever, and just put them in there and have it give you that list of information or that list of kind of those ideas that we might have. And so get all that information. And then this kind of little epic hypothesis statement on the right, that's part of the scaled agile framework process, where we gather all those ideas from that people and the AI generated documents, and we kind of roll them up into larger initiatives and capabilities. It's just a bigger, hey, let's 8 million different things. Maybe that's all those ideas are part of a bigger epic. Um, you know, uh, EA people can often use, business cases or capability models to do that type of kind of consolidation. In our human AI approach, we just create the structured way to capture and organize those ideas, right?
Mm.
Just organize them. Just get them down in a much more organized fashion than that mass chaos that you have, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
piece the value in that is that's how you communicate with people, right? You need to be to
yes.
understand it in a structured way, a common language, a common presentation. Heck yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And yeah, and great because you could say, hey, ChatGPT, this is how we like to do it in our organization. This is the document that we have to produce. Produce it for me, right? You know, um, have it work with you. I can guarantee you when you get that results, you're going to have to read it. You're going to have to proof it. You're going to have to change it. You're going to have to tweak it. You're going to put your human aspect onto that, right?
Sure.
Um, so yeah. Um, so once you kind of have all those ideas, get all those ideas from those 15 different meetings, from the HR department to the IT department to the benefits department. I don't care, name all those different departments that they all have different ideas where AI could be best used within your organization. Put that all down, drop it in a tool to come out with some of those ideas and go from there. So that doesn't mean you've actually picked the ideas, right? We actually want to go into which one of those ideas should we actually do, and this is where it helps make the actual end result in the system that you actually build be more sustainable, right? Do that analysis much easier in the process. So when we go from collecting those ideas to selecting which ones we actually want to develop, which ones we want to implement, build that cross-functional, and we just call it the review crew, right? Call it whatever team you want, but this is that team that helps, collaborates, figures out, and to do that stress test your assumptions. identify the risks, align those different ideas with how the human AI system will work in practice, right?
It looks like
Uh,
you're also breaking open silos to try and extract knowledge from what would normally be trapped behind walls to some sort of combined synthesis. We talk about this a lot in ARIS, which is the idea of trying to involve a wider set of collaborators and forcing this single space within which they work that allows them to see each other, and in seeing each other, collectively make decisions on things that require a collective analysis. And that's
Right.
really the different sort of. It also gives people buy-in, and I think if you can just put somebody on the review crew, suddenly your part of the business feels like this decision was in part theirs because it is
Exactly.
not
Yes.
really cool.
Definitely. And I know we kind of on the slide, there's, this section here that has these three people and then other, right? It's just more because I'm going to talk more about
I
these specific three things in a little bit more detail on who they are. Cause I think that's the more newer. Wow. It's the newer people that need to be a part in the process.
Designation, don't worry.
Yeah. But these people are just as important in the organization, the compliance, the operations, the contracting, the cybersecurity, the SMEs, you name it, right? Keep them involved in the process through the entire practice. And so that's where, you know, the AI user-centered design, right? So many things I bet people can raise their hands on easily on, especially the tech nerds that have had to do a piece of software and go, oh, yeah, Bob said he wants this. I have an idea and I am going to spend the next 3 weeks implementing that idea, right? Boom. Here you go, Bob. Does this work? Well, no, right? Because
Yeah.
Bob was not really involved in that process, right? Um, understand the customer perspective. Who is actually going to be using the end result in this process? What are their tasks? What are their challenges? How do they interpret the risk? How do they interpret trust in the process, right? We need to understand the maintenance and operations perspectives. Who's maintaining the system? Who's supporting it? Who's relying on it after launch, right? Because all of that helps us design that stable, usable, adaptive solution, not just smart ones, right? We don't want that AI that technically works but fails the humans at what it's actually supposed to help, which was just so easy to do. And so,
So many people
and,
just go buy a tool and then just implement it.
uh-huh.
Mm. Every program that has some support structures around it. Otherwise, good luck. You just wasted your hard-earned money.
Definitely. Yep. And so then you have the AI architects, right? The
Yeah.
technology architect team that connects the dots between the innovation ideas of AI, the typical non-functional requirements, security, scalability, reliability. You still got to tick those check boxes. They're just as important.
Mm.
Um, they can ask, can this integrate with what we already have? Will it scale with what we have? What does it cost at scale? Not just to build, to run, but to monitor and evolve over time. Um, they can recommend funding for smarter enablers like reusable AI platforms,
Sure.
uh, GPT governance proxies, or maybe other automation tools that can be there, right?
This
Those
governance side, because these people who could also, they're the experts enough that they can give you some things you'll need for security and for compliance, and they can help give you assurances that you're not going to be looking to train some foreign AI with your customer data. Like that is
Exactly.
like,
Yes,
people seem really.
DeepSeek isn't for us today, right? But maybe it will be in the future, right? But hey, DeepSeek's free, type of thing. Yeah. Um, and so those AI architects, right? The goal, or I think their goal of that AI architect is to help, move faster, be flexible, and move towards that scalable future solution where it's stable at the bottom, right? So, um, and here's like an example. We built like this the LSA digital human A process simulation engine, just a kind of a base process that we use to help an agency get a starting point for one of their acquisition processes. And it's kind of coming back to that federal acquisition and that RFP example that we showed before, um, where this engine here is suggesting like kind of three different options for that human AI design, where it has like maybe we're going to put a human into a loop process, right? And we want to have different options: that conservative approach using the least amount of AI, the balanced approach where there's an AI first approach, and then the more extreme, the more extreme AI first approach where AI is doing majority of the work, right? And so this tool, for example, just makes that process, or makes the process about you, collecting your organization's acquisition process pain points, and helps create a better scenario for you. Um, and so it played, right? Or did it not play? I don't know. Let's go through here. So yeah, there we go. And so in this process here, we're going to kind of do an AI segment approach here, or simulation, where it's going to do some simulations, going to go through the process and see what it might look like at scale. It's going to maybe look at those 2 years of RFPs that we got in. It's going to process them, read them, see what we can do, and then help scale up the process, right? So do that AI architecture, intelligence, process modeling, figuring things out there. And then at the end, we can kind of see, hey, here's some risks, here's some what we find with market research, et cetera, from there, right? So do those different simulations in the process. That's what that architect can help you with there. And then this simulations, it's complete, so we can compare the time and cost savings. In the red box here, we have this example that we can see where the process optimization recommendations are affected by pain points we entered earlier, type of thing, right? So getting that information, getting all that data, and analyzing it from there. And then this is my ARIS plug, right? Then that process is API transferred, because we are ARIS fan too. And so that process is that I'm sorry, that API is then transferring the information over to the ARIS process design tool for further customizations, considering much more detail on what the review crew inputs, details, recommendations need to happen in there. So
Beyond it, we can center it in the process repository and the hierarchy. We can help bring governance on the process side, business expertise into it. Yeah, this now connects with your process intelligence ecosystem, and also that sets a baseline for what you're going to eventually monitor through process mining. So now we're taking ideation, turning it into an implementable process that can also be monitored. I mean, this sounds like we're ready to actually run this process. So tell me a little bit more about, how do you turn this into something to action, like to people not just planning, but actually like running this AI driven ecosystem.
yeah, so that's where you've done these process modelings, right? We've gone through this information. We've looked at what should actually be done, right?
Mhm.
Let's build that lean business case. And once again, this lean business case is a scaled agile mindset, but you can all use that in different things. Google lean business case, just a structure and a framework for that.
You guys love to tell that little framework because it's safe.
We do. That's, I drank that Kool-Aid, so.
Yeah.
But yes, we all drink our different Kool-Aids. So yeah, go from there on that process. So implementing the process. So here's a really quick example, and I'm kind of taking back to something you said earlier too. Um, this example, we built this tool using vibe coding, and we call it the prospect pilot. And this example, we went from those written features. Let's say we've done all that analysis, we've done that process simulation, we've looked at different things to see how it's going to improve, and we made that decision that AI is going to help us, right? So, in a certain process. So, this example, Replit. Replit is it's a third-party tool, not necessarily promoting, selling, whatever. I don't get paid by saying it. Um, Replit's just a tool you can go out and sign. It's a vibe coding tool. If you're not familiar with vibe coding, it's the practice of using prompts to actually produce output. You can go up there and say, hey, I want you to write me my own version of Netflix. You give it the information and you give it prompts, and it'll create code for you, do all the kind of code type of thing, right? And so what we did here in this example is we took all of that information that we did from those previous, to collecting the ideas and then determining which ideas to implement. We put that information up into Replit and said, boom, give us something here. And it gave us a pretty cool tool, really nice UI, had to work with it. Now this was 3-4 months ago. Maybe many of you seen all the new changes that AI is getting so much better at producing code and outputs. So I'm actually, I might actually have to do that, is get this and re-put it through the tool and see what it creates today and how much better and efficient it is. But um, what we created here was not just the idea, but we created a live code, a live system that we could actually test here, right? This people that Bob I talked about earlier, that you did something, you can actually give him his hands on the keyboard today with that idea and say, Bob, is this what you're looking for? Right. That user experience, you're going to analyze that a lot faster, a lot easier type of thing. Maybe it's not best yet for scale in terms of putting it into a production system because it doesn't have the security and the governance and everything behind it. But the user experience side of it, you can test it a lot easier for that. Right. Um, so yeah, we built this example prototype where we did this, and we said, "Hey, we want that learning loop. We want that learning loop on that communication from the AI." And this is that prospect pilot tool. It's a human AI system for outbound marketing, where the AI generates the first draft and the human steps in, adds rating, comments, and corrections, and that input trains the system directly. It gets that human empathy, that human emotion, that human feeling there, and we tested that theory out, right? And on this, as we scroll down, you can kind of see, kind of hear how different emails evolve, where the emails started including the emails started including, you know, different information about the person that it's messaging. You know,
It
when
breaks that game of me or GPT, right? Like you're trying to eventually fool or like convince the end recipient of these emails that a human was involved. Because the truth is, it was, even though the text may have been generated and regenerated by AI, the human being tailored that with their own experience and personality to better appeal to them. I love that.
exactly, yep. And kind of what we feel this does here, and I hinted about it earlier, is that this example initially I would have to sit and review 1,000 emails, right? And train the system and look at it and go, maybe not 1,000, but I have to look at a whole bunch of the emails, look at it, proof it, make changes, make suggestions, right? But what we're hoping to get to with that machine learning, with the human in the loop, is that we are then only, instead of having to review 50 emails a day, we're having to review 5 emails a day. And if those 5 emails that we reviewed every day are good, we can trust it to generate 45 other emails, and it has my message, it has my love notes appropriately embedded into it properly, right? And it sounds like Keith
Yeah.
in that process. Um, and so it's not just about being faster at sending out 50 emails in a cold outreach example. Cold outreach is always generally a cold process, right? But it's helping it get smarter. It's helping it be more aligned and more consistent with how the team communicates and what the audience is responding to. Use those stats on how many people are clicking on it to feed it and give it more information in that process.
It looks for completing that human AI loop that you've talked about before. Like this is kind of the example of how that all comes together.
Exactly. It's likely my next slide. And so Um, someday these webinars are going to be hosted where it's going to be a human with an AI robot, or maybe JM is a bot already and we just don't know it, and it's learned your segues a lot better. So, um, I don't know if you've seen it, but there is and I know there's other podcasts, but what is it? Google's Notebook tool, right? I don't know if you've played with that at all, but it gets two conversations or two documents and makes it talk to look like it's a nice podcast, right?
Well,
I don't want to put us out of jobs here, so I'm not to.
no,
Okay.
please don't tell people about that. No, actually, I've listened. I've played with that a bit. It's
Yeah.
eerie, but it's also incorrect. And I think
Yes.
there's still a human element to this. I mean, they're not coming up with our jokes. Come on, the minute they tell correct, I know I'm out of the job.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it's not going to spoke bad English like I do, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah. Um, so I have a couple examples. Part of what I love to do is not necessarily, yes, I kind of showed you how to get some of those ideas, how to do a value analysis on those ideas, how to test out those ideas. That's kind of the meat of what this deck was kind of showing. I I also, like I said at the very beginning of my introduction, like to find the right technology, the right process, the right solution that you're doing. Um, and maybe the ideas and the examples here aren't exactly what you're going to implement. Hopefully, they're not. I would love to hear from you about what your ideas are and what you're thinking about and going, hey, how can I best implement a human in the loop scenario in this situation? Right? What should I be looking at? What should I be cautious of? What tests should I do? What simulations should I run? How do I best check that that value is there? So, love to talk to all of you in more detail about your different ideas and stuff in that process. And this is more just getting those juices flowing, right? Maybe you're going to use AI in that RFP review. We've talked about this example throughout this webinar so far. And just 1,000 of those RFPs, the SME flags issues, merges, duplicates, add those nuances, etc. Learn from it, type of thing. Maybe your HR team, your benefits outreach people are needing to get you're up for annual enrollment and all your benefits, right? But those emails go unnoticed, those emails go unhandled, right? How can we make those messages that go out to the eligible people to get better responses, right? AI can segment that information. Hey, these are these people that need this type of thing, and these people need this type of benefit, etc. The human can adjust the tone. It can make sure that the information, the compliance there is all correct, right? Confirm the language, keep it in the loop, and so that next time it is better, right? I know we're on time. I'm almost there. Um, and so, and kind of one that uh, a lot of some of this deck was built for the government, some of our government clients in the process, and so we know that in that example, there's tons of policies that are changing on a daily, weekly, hourly basis, right? You see a tweet, and then boom, you have to go implement that policy, right? So this here is, hey, how can you get that information and draft policy text or policy changes, regulatory triggers, etc. Put that into the policies. Look at all of your different policies and processes and procedures. Have AI review that, find out what needs to be called out, what needs to be edited, and then the human reviews it before actually going into effect there, right? And so just different ideas. That's just these core different ideas of where use AI to draft policy updates, use AI to do better outreach for your benefits team, do better responding to your RFP reviews.
So, Keith, I want to wrap this with actual strategies before we get to the questions and because I know we've got the big four challenges, the big four things you can do, and how we can use technology and services to make that happen.
Correct. So I'm going to skip to instead of one thing here, I'm going to skip kind of to this last slide here that kind of shows it all, right? So these strategies, kind of, we've kind of talked about not sure where to use AI through this whole call. Where should you be doing AI today? Determine your problems, figure it out, talk to those different people, talk with your different team members, go from there. Use scaled agile practices in that process, right? Um, uh, Not sure how much AI versus human to plan, right? We talked about this. Do that model simulation, do that mining, look at what those different costs, the risks, the benefits, the people involved, that review crew, do that, right? Use ARIS process intelligence. And I'll take that $25 check right after this, jam for that. And so use ARIS process intelligence, tools to help figure that out, right? Put that information in there. Maybe you're waiting on approval to use technology. Maybe you're a government organization. Maybe you're just enterprise and you have budget cuts, et cetera, from there. Start the learning process today.
Yeah.
I know some of it you can use today. Some of it, go home and have your own Chat GPT account and play with things. Don't put in your company confidential information. Don't do that kind of stuff. I'm not promoting that at all in the slightest. Change the names to protect the innocent type of thing, right? Get that small proof of concept. Go up to Replit, go up to lovable.com, go up to ChatGPT and say, hey, create me a proof of concept of this idea where the human is going to stay in the loop in that process and go from there. And then, not sure if you're wanting to use existing or new technologies or investments. Um, and this is because of our software AG days and all being in love with everything that they create and produce. There's that still that plug for the alphabet. That team can send my $25 check also. But look at your app technology portfolio rationalization process. Do that to make sure that you are not just plugging in something new. Those AI architects, that review crew team will make sure that you're not going from there. So
We
those
can
are some of the kind of the base
follow that
strategies.
so as sort of a conduit through which that can be done. I mean, LSA Digital is the founder Mike Eidengren, a big fan. I'm a big fan of his. And I think what you guys do is really interesting. And to drive forward, like executing on these strategies and getting to actually achieve something that's implementable and that will be successful upon implementation. And that human AI, I can't say thank you enough for that. Well, I know we have a couple questions that I wanted to quickly address. So I think the biggest question that I'd love to talk about is this one right here, which is modeling agentic AI powered processes, because that is a big question that we get a lot of people asking about. So from your perspective, do you have any modeling strategies you want to talk about for agentic AI powered process? Because it sounds like it's kind of the opposite for you. You're taking agentic AI driven responses and then modeling that automatically using the API to make that's
Sorry, sorry, I was that more of a question for me, or you're more the errors expert. I'm sorry, JM. I was
no, it's okay.
half reading the other QA questions at the same time. So
It sounds like you're auto modeling the processes from your side. What I will say from modeling agentic AI processes, remember that agentic AI requires a few things. It requires goals or a task. It has to be given. It requires specific instructions. It needs guardrails and governance. It needs to have data, the sources. It needs to know its ecosystem of tools. It needs to have the orchestration that it's going to be using in order to do this. So those things are all objects you would find on a function allocation diagram in ARIS. So you can put an ecosystem, a sort of satellite of objects around a task within ARIS, and then define the specific instructions even in a submodel for that. So you're creating essentially like the blueprint for an agent with the process you expect it to do and the outcomes you expect it to provide, but all inside ARIS. And so you can use that as a mechanism to inform your agentic AI system what it's supposed to do, and that all can be visually captured with the data underlying it, the relationships that it relies on, and then replicated, as I said at the very beginning, as you learn that as a best practice and want to implement it elsewhere. And I think that's a way of doing that all in ARIS that I particularly love. What comes first? Um, ARIS, business processes or the agentic AI driven processes? Which one's the chicken or the egg? Do you want to start with agentic AI or do you want to start with blueprinting? How about Keith? I'll put that to you.
um, oh, tough question. Yes, chicken before or chicken or the egg. I guess my proper answer is supposed to be proven AI business processes, right?
No, it's the idea here is that are you starting your conversation by letting the AI inform you as to what's possible? And I actually, weirdly enough, I think that might be the way we talked about it today. The AI sort of tells you, here's some things I think we should do. And then we fit that into the blueprint of a business and say, well, here are things we need to do. Right. So now we're putting what should we do to optimize my workflow? What do we need to do? And that comes together to form what should we actually do when we implement this. And so I think that asking both sides of that coin questions, the business and the AI, will give you an informed response. With that, Keith, I appreciate you very much. This was a fantastic conversation.